Hey guys, Tarke here, and I've literally just come in from the cinema because I fell asleep in the cinema because I'm a pleb who's really tired. We did a stream earlier to see if the stream settings were right, and they seem to be alright. We did some leveling. Tarke 2.6 test cap, so if you haven't already, go follow Twitch, there'll be a link to that down below. But yeah, we're going to be doing some on-off streaming between now and the end of the league. I'll be doing some build making streams, some random casual leveling, and all the other stuff. People like the build making streams, people like that stuff, so if you need it, then that'll be something I'll be trying to do. I'm not going to be streaming every single day, but I'm going to try and stream every other day-ish, for like 4 or 5 hours a day, just to get back into the swing of things, because we always streaming next league, so that's going to be going on. Now, what is this skill tree? Again, this is coming up before the big 2.6 reveals and patch notes and stuff. This is a preliminary meme build, which is actually pretty good. I'm enjoying the playstyle from what I've loved with it so far. Again, it's only 49. I've just enjoyed the playstyle. I like the way it all sort of functions, and I think it's actually pretty decent for a league starter. And the main important thing about it is Scorching Ray plus Scorching Ray equals funny meme shit. I have a friend I'm going to be doing duo stuff with. He's going to be Scorching Ray. I'm going to be Scorching Ray. It's going to be Scorching Ray crossing beam shenanigans. And the way it's going to work is I am going to be a life-based Inquisitor, and he is going to be a CI-based Occultist. I'll quickly cover both trees. We spent quite a while sort of messing around with them. They're fairly optimized, but neither of us have used the skill before, so there'll be some fine tweaking which occurs. I've personally gone very heavy on the cast speed to get clean rotations. He hasn't gone heavy on cast speed at all, so there'll obviously be some normal tuning and updating as we have done with all the previous build guides that we've done in this league. But I'll cover my tree quickly, then I'll cover his tree and sort of go over one or two things. Now, we're not going to be only playing together, we will be doing some solo stuff, so there is some slight single player versus 2-player unoptimized stuff, so we both get a curse set up because you want a really nice tri-curse setup. He's probably going to go quad curse, but it's one of those things of, if we knew that we would always be playing 24/7 together, then I would go for more of an aura focus and he'd do curse stuff because he's an occultist. But the way it is now, we'll kind of cover each other's weaknesses a bit and so on and so forth. So why have I gone for occultist as my go-to for life-based? Basically every single part of the kit is just amazing. Instruments of Virtue is really good. Spell damage if you've cast a spell recently. Cast speed if you've attacked recently. Attack speed if you've attacked recently. I'm going to be using a +3 bow, as is he. We're both doing different things, but basically the reason I'm doing a +3 bow, +3 bow lets me use a quiver with 100 flat life on it, so I can do 100 flat life quiver, plus a combs, plus res in every slot, and get just a lot of raw life. He's going for a +3 bow, so you can use a soul strike and do all the energy shield recharge stuff and get a bunch of CI, so it's kind of like, good shenanigans. I'll be blinking around to proc my stuff. I'll see if just blink faster attacks feels smooth enough, otherwise I'll be using a fast cast as my main setup and just blink to proc stuff. But you get so much just like raw passive attack speed that I feel like blink faster attacks will be enough that it'll kind of feel smooth, but that'll be a playing around thing. Until you get a +3 weapon, just doing sword and board, shield charge, feel absolutely perfect. You'll be completely fine. Then go for Augury of Penitence. Well, actually, okay, you'd rush Pious Path, then this, but I'll cover that why. But this is really good because it gives nearby enemies deal 8% less elemental damage. This covers both of us. It does enemies, it buffs both of our defense, and nearby enemies take 16% increase, which is a more multiplier. So enemies take more damage and deal less damage. Obviously, very good for solo play, amazing when you get into 2-player stuff. Life regen, ele damage, that's something. All of these little nodes give just loads of ele damage, so you just get 100% like increased damage just from the ascendancy. It's ridiculous. 25% chance to create Consecrated Ground on hit, lasting 8 seconds. Consecrated Ground you create grants 40% increased damage to you and your allies. Again, we just give damage straight up to our allies. Very, very strong. And then chance to create Consecrated Ground on kill. So basically there's always Consecrated Ground, and you use a Sulphur Flask because it's Sulphur Flask and it makes the stuff guaranteed proc. And the flask itself gives an additional 40% increased damage. More life regen, more ele deeps. Immune status elements 1 Consecrated Ground. Basically PogChamp, we have 1 Sulfur Flask, and that will remove all status ailments. Seems good. 4% of maximum mana and energy shield regenerated per second. This means that we have infinite mana sustain and a bunch of attack and cast we want on the ground. So this is what you'd rush for Crawl. You'd then get this, you'd then get this. The reason I'm doing it this way is this will be the wonkiest thing for me to maintain, and these two routes affect duo play the most. This is purely a personal buff. That's why I go for these first, then I'll get this for Uber. His then benefits, and then I'll cover the two trees afterwards. Is so curse enemies you kill have a chance to explode. Pretty good, just extra clear speed. But the most important thing, enemies you curse take 10% increased damage. Basically, when he curses stuff, we get more multis. Then we get some any shield curse duration for him. He gets additional curse, so he gets a curse here. Then he can use the Wedries if he wants to go quad. He gets Wicked Ward, and he gets Vaal Bastion, giving him insane amounts of energy shield recharge, and it gives him stun immune while he's on full energy shield. So you can see why that's so powerful. The other obvious options are Trickster, but it's a little bit out of the way. Again, Trickster's still very good for CI. You would go for Shade Form, Patient Reaper, and Swift Killer for frenzy charge generation. But he decides to go Conduit. The reason why he goes Conduit is it's like decent 4-pointer. It gives him 12% power, endurance, and frenzy charge generation. Power charges aren't wasted because we both take Ele Overload, so it makes it feel a bit smoother. Endurance charges is mitigation, frenzy charges is more damage, and cast speed and attack speed makes both of our builds feel smoother. I get frenzy charges through Blood Rage, but when I'm playing with him, it means I don't need to run the Blood Rage. Obviously pretty powerful. This means he doesn't need to run Blood Rage. Obviously pretty powerful. And he kind of has the points to spare in his build. So, yes. Chieftain is terrible for Scorching Ray, very briefly. Just nothing really works for Scorching Ray. That works. Fire Leech doesn't work. Fire Pen doesn't work. This is wasted. Fire Pen does not work on degens. You cannot penetrate a degen. So this node does nothing. This node is to do with totems and burns, but this is like its own separate thing. So basically, Chieftain is terrible for Scorching Ray, and if you want to do Righteous Fire, you're still better off doing this because you get loads of life regen from this. You'll see I have 6.3% life regen without the 4% from Consecrated Ground, so that 4% is basically my Blood Rage, so I have 6.3% positive life regen, which is very nice. It makes me very tanky, means I can AFK read chat 24/7, and I'm not going to rally one shot because I'm going to have a very high HP pool, and then passive regen going on, and all the good. So, Berserk is decent, but doesn't have defense, doesn't have cast speed. Juggernaut has the best defense, but no damage, so yeah, this is just like a POG, and then everything else is just too far out of the way. So you get a pretty basic start. You'd come through Ele Deeps, into Retribution, into Life, into this at the 2-pointer. We look at how I've done it for the early leveling, because this whole point of this character was just to mock out the early leveling experience, and it's actually really smooth. So you come through this way, get to Discipline and Training, and then you can choose if you want easy stat requirements. You can then come down and get Sanctity into Precision. Precision is actually a pretty good 2-pointer in the fact that it gives you 6% attack and cast speed, gives you a little bit of movement speed, and it gives you the 20 dex, which is important in a build which needs dex. So it works, and a build where we're hard chasing cast speed. Again, cast speed makes the Scorching Ray apply faster and gives us rotation speed. You want the sweet spot of about 100 to 150%. Cast speed, anything above that is wasted. So, come through, grab Elementalist for the all res to make the early leveling nicer. Light and Divinity, again, just for some damage and some more stat requirements. When you get like this early package, all your stats are fine. You then come through and hit Quick Recovery to get some regen and sustain. You then spend 3 points to pick up Elemental Overload for more damage. Then you come down and get Elemental Equilibrium again for more damage. If you happen to have a jewel, pick up this jewel. If you don't, then don't, and just wait until you get one. And the way we proc both the Elemental Equilibrium and the Ele Overload is by dropping an Orb of Storms. You just drop the Orb of Storms when you need damage. So if there's a tanky rare, if there's a boss, you drop it, everything dies. At that point, you then come down and grab Potency of Will and Shaper. Probably grab Shaper first, then Potency of Will, just to help with mana sustain and all that good stuff. Then you want to come down and pick up Constitution. Once you've got Constitution, you then spring up to get Jewel Curse, and you can run a defensive Temp Chains and Feeble while leveling, or you can run Temp Chains Flammability, or Vulnerability, you can work it out, just mess around. Once you've gotten Jewel Curse, you then fill in the rest of Silent Life. Once you've gotten the rest of Silent Life, come down here, pick up Purity of Flesh just to get a little, nice little life boost. Finish filling in Holy Fire, and then that's like your early core package. At that point, you have enough damage and enough defense that it's a case of just filling the rest of the tree as needed. I would argue once you've gotten Holy Fire, you probably want to travel down to Marauder Start. Getting Marauder Start is quite a lot of travel points, but it's a thing of you get a lot of life, you get a lot of regen, and it's just really, really PogChamp. And it's better to do the traveling early because everything else is pretty close, everything's within like 2 points. So, yeah. You can see that without all the jewels filled in, which obviously you're not going to be hard chasing jewels as a league starter because you're not going to have the stuff to put into the jewels. You're not going to be hard chasing damage. You can easily fit, you know, everything down into a pretty reasonable looking tree. We'll probably also pick up the curse effect. So yeah, you're looking at like 90 skill points, and that gives you 180% life. You have all the important stuff filled in. You get the 2-point jewels, which you can just use like random like Act 2 jewels or whatever. You eventually want to swap these 2 points around for these 2 points. The reason being is you just get 10 strength for 10 int. 10 strength is like more life, and that's the reason why it's better. But yeah, that's basically the base tree. I'll obviously do, you know, updated leveling guides and such as I progress through the character if I decide to play this as my league start, but that's that. For the Occultist version, pretty similar concept. Again, this is a case of for early leveling you'd route through, actually no, you probably still would route through this way. So you would hard chase up through Cultist Dominion into Firewalker to give you a nice little boost early on. And then what you would basically do, because obviously you're not going to level as CI, is you just follow my tree. So you hard boost up through Witch Start, and then you fill in this life, and fill in this early damage life, fill in Ele Overload into Elemental Equilibrium, and the exact same pattern, right? So it's one of those things of, if we just reset this tree so you get a rough idea. I'll just do this. Okay, so your early start just looks like this basically. And yeah, it's basically the exact same leveling process. You just alter the way you do it slightly, and it's all about just getting enough life early on that you're not going to fall over. And depending at this point, if you're in hardcore at this point in the tree, I'd probably recommend going into Marauder Start, because it's probably going to be a while until you can afford good CI gear. So you want to have enough life that you're not going to randomly just fall over. So you probably want to literally just hard copy my tree. 160% life is enough to like farm Dried Lake, get enough currency, but it depends on how early you want to be doing the push, how long you want to wait until you do your CI transition. If you were to spend this many points, you'd obviously need to do some respecking, but it's not that much to respec out of. There are some points you'd have to spend, some regrets. You need to get your 20 respec points for free, so sort of mix and match, kind of do what you want to do. But the actual tree itself is pretty straightforward. It's a case of just get the most efficient damage you can. You get loads of energy shield just because you're an occultist, and it's just chase damage, chase jewels, chase quality of life. If you're doing solo stuff, drop these 4 points. These points here are questionable, and that was mostly a case of he wanted to get some nice early resists and early stat requirements. He was struggling with stuff like strength and dex. The 5 points to get Alchemist is probably worthwhile. You need to remember that both my build and his build, we both have Alchemist for 5 points, and in both builds, Alchemist for 5 points is probably almost definitely worthwhile. The reason being is this is 32% flask effectiveness. Both builds would run a Witchfire Brew, and both builds would run a Sulphur Flask. That's 110% increased damage just from those 2 flasks. 32% of 110% increased damage. You're already looking at like okay-ish DPS numbers when it comes to just breaking down into nodes. You then start thinking about stuff like the extra movement speed you'd get from a Quicksilver, the extra physical mitigation you'd get from a Basalt Flask. You're looking at something like, what, roughly 40-ish% increased damage, 6 to 8% physical reduction depending on if you're running a normal Basalt or increased effect Basalt, and a whole bunch of movement speed, then depending on what other unique flasks you're running, max res, so on and so forth. These are almost definitely worth 5 points, especially in the CI version, because in the CI version you're having all the crazy utility flasks, so that flask effect is really, really noticeable. So it'd basically be drop Conduit and pick up this, and then get access to the nice 2-pointer jewel. And if you did that, that would maybe also give you access to running a conversion jewel here, and converting this life and this life into energy shield. That also means that you can change up some of your routing somewhere, but this was what he was happy with. It gave him a lot of damage, it gave him a lot of defense, and yes, that is that. So if you haven't already, make sure you're following Twitch so you get notified for the live streams we're doing over the next few days. If you have any suggestions for either of our 2 builds, then please do let us know. The only sort of like early uniques we'll be chasing is we'll both be trying to get hold of some Searing Touches. They're generally fairly cheap. They will obviously be a bit more inflated at the start of the league if everyone's doing Flame Blast action, but they're the kind of weapons which would easily see us through until we got a nice +3. The way we're going to be getting our +3 bows is using the Porcupine div card set. The Porcupine gives you a 6-link item level 50 short bow, and getting the colours on a short bow is really easy. It's only something like 200 chromatics, which for a 6-link is pretty pogchamp. And we'd use essences to get the fire gem roll on it, then get the +1s on there. So it's all fairly achievable pretty early into the league. We can both be rocking 6-links within the first few weeks depending on how hard we push, which for 2 dudes messing around doing meme rays, I think is pretty cool. That being said, if they do release some crazy new skills, if there's like fucking Cat Hadouken Beam, then I'll be playing Cat Hadouken Beam instead of Scorching Ray Beam because of cats. But I'm Tarke, this is a Fox Scarf, this is a Penguin. Have a good day, bye bye.